Level Up Latina partners with working women and mamas alike to guide them in achieving fulfilling career and life goals through financial empowerment, professional or leadership coaching, and personal wellness. Find the unique coaching you need to succeed.
You're listening to Vero, Ceci, and Irene, and we are Level Up Latina.
Welcome back to another episode of the Level Up Latina podcast. So excited to launch our summer series today. Over the next several weeks, you're going to get shorter shows, but just as exciting because this is what we do every summer to give ourselves a little bit of a break, but still check in with our loyal audience. So we will have topics that we have fielded from our community of listeners, from our own lives and talking with each other. And we're really excited to be here just sharing short and sweet sound bites and episodes somewhere around 20 minutes or so, maybe a little less, maybe a little more. But we hope that you'll join us during the summer. Chime in for these conversations that we're going to have informally again, but welcome to our summer series. So this is episode 253. Today we're actually going to be talking about supporting friends and family through divorce, the big D word. I wish it was another D word, but it is divorce, the big scary divorce word, maybe not so scary for some. So we'll talk about supporting friends and family that have gone through divorce and, you know, a little bit about our own lives as three married women. But before we do that, a quick hello to my partners, Ceci, Vero. How are you doing on this fine summer day?
Good. Aquí, como te decía, I'm a little hungry, so I'm snacking on some almonds and nuts.
You mean nuts? Okay.
Yeah.
You continue the pun. Irene started with the D word of divorce, and then you should continue the pun with the nuts. But we got you, girl.
But I feel like I'm slow today. I know right now in la tarde, I just feel like, oh my God.
Tengo hambre.
Hopefully the energy from the nuts will get to me.
We are praying for that. And I'm doing good. I'm keeping it together. Thankfully, my sister was available today to come watch my 4 minions. And she's going to keep them entertained for a little while we do kick off our summer series, you guys. And be patient with me. I am having internet technical issues. So I might sound like a robot. I might sound like I'm, slow. But I am present here for y'all. Un abrazo.
Bravo, bravo, bravo. Yeah, we're all at home. It's the summer and kids may be home. Pets may be here. It is what you get at the LUL podcast, but it's very honest, real, and raw. So if that's you with interruptions and family around, what a blessing. We have some of that. We can relate. So we don't mean to be total Debbie Downers. This is a topic that we thought was important because the emphasis is on the word supporting. So supporting friends and family through divorce. As we watch people kind of come into relationships, end relationships, whether they're formal or not. You might have friends that you're supporting through a big breakup, not necessarily a divorce. That's a whole other conversation. Sometimes friends get divorced, and we'll talk about that on a later time. But we've been thinking a lot about it and supporting in particular friends and family members in our life that might be going through trial separations, divorce, a tough time in their union, and it is such a hard thing. So we thought that others might be going through this situation and might be able to get some wonderful support from us and some feedback and some advice on how to be there for someone going through it. Now, listen, there's no right answer. We are not therapists. We are not doctors or marriage and family counselors, but we definitely have lived a little. 40 years, right? Las tres, 40 plus. And we're married, varying degrees, anywhere from 5+ years there. So a lot of marriage experience, and no marriage is perfect. And so I'm sure there's a lot that we've gone through that allows us to understand people and be there for people, and sometimes not know how to be there for people. So my first question for my co-host is going to be, what's your go-to for a friend that you feel is going through it in a relationship, or a family member going through it in a relationship? How have you navigated being there for them? Because the first thing whenever you hear about a relationship going through it is, I think personally, that you feel this sense of como que te da lástima. You feel really bad for people. And lástima is maybe not the word, because that means to feel sorry for someone. But you definitely feel an ache when you hear about divorce.
Como tristecita, ¿no?
Yeah, sadness. That's a good word. Good word. Yeah. You feel like a sadness, and if there's kids involved and a long-term relationship or family, you do feel the feels. So what's the first go-to for you when someone in your life has come to you and said, hey, I'm separating, I'm getting divorced, it's not working out, whether you've been caught off guard or not, or you saw it coming? Maybe some people aren't sad. Maybe some people are like, hell yeah, it's about time, girl. And you're going into your single strut. Whatever it's been for you, what has been your go-to response for someone that you feel is ending a relationship?
it's hard, right? Because we haven't experienced it, but when we see, for example, family members, and you know both spouses, and you've known them for a really long time, like you said, see that como tristecita, especially if there's like minor children involved, because what else, I think coming from like on the side of the family member, you would want them to grow old. You would want them to raise those kids together, but problems occur within couples, and there's nothing that you can do. I often get asked, like, do you know a divorce lawyer? Do you know a family lawyer? And unfortunately, I don't personally. I do have acquaintances that I went to law school with, and I always those are my go-to lawyers that I refer family and friends to when the question is asked. And I think the most important thing that we can do is just to listen, be there, be an ear, let them vent, hear them out. Because as much as and I've done this, I've been guilty of this, but as much as you want to give suggestions or advice, it might not be taken, or it wasn't asked. They just want an ear and someone to vent to. So that would be my suggestion. Like, be there. How can I support? Ask the question. And if there's kids involved, and when there's, I guess, once the divorce and proceedings start, like, try to not have your kids there, maybe, and support in the way like, oh, do you want me to watch your kids when you're going to talk to an attorney or you have a court appearance? That would be my go-to advice and pointers.
Alrighty. I love that. Definitely not trying to solve things, but be a good listener. Offer support, offer to be there for the things that are like logistics. I hadn't thought about that. So see, as an attorney, you get the question a lot. Like, you probably get a lot of people asking you, what do you think? I need a divorce attorney. What do you know about this whole thing with proceedings and divorce? So thank you for being an ear to more than probably just friends and family, but even strangers that want to know what they should do.
I agree with the vent, allowing them to share their story, right? There's always two stories, and no matter how much we love that loved one, you're like, okay, well, what is it that is going on exactly? I have two people right now that are close to me that are going through a divorcee. And for one of them, I just knew that it was that time, right? For one of them, I was like, yep, it was in the cards. It was happening. It's been something she had been, in a sense, you could say, quote unquote, putting up with for a while, to maintain the image of the oldest daughter that was still, married and could maintain her marriage, and for several decades, you could say, even though there had been, issues along the way that I observed very closely, right, with this person, early on, like, okay, hey, maybe, is that what partnership is like? Is that what your partner and your husband, or, the person that you love, is this right? Is that how it's supposed to work? But it's kind of like saying, it's okay. You decided that, and it's the right decision, right? Because these, they tend to second guess themselves. Am I doing the right thing for myself? Am I doing the right thing for my family, for my heart? But at the end of the day, it's like, are you doing the right thing for you? And if that person feels that it's not something where it's being, not in a bad way, selfish, where it's like, I just want freedom, I just want this. It's more of like, at the end of the day, I've tried everything with this person and it doesn't work out. I'm not any happier from them when we were together. We haven't grown. And there's a lot of those kind of things that just kind of point in the direction of like, it's time. It's time to leave whatever this is in the past. Porque no tiene solución, ¿me entiendes? Like, no me está apoyando como pareja, and there's just no coming back from it. I think in one situation it's been like that. The other one, it was more of like, all right, are you sure this is what you want? Is this the best thing? And it's exhausting all resources. Have you exhausted all the resources? Have you gone to therapy? Have you done couples therapy, marriage therapy, and tried everything you can to salvage this marriage? And sometimes it comes out of the blue, right? You think these people are just perfect for one another when you see them. They bring out the all the emotions, right? The joy, at the same time, you're like, oh, partners fight, husband and wife when partners fight like that, husband, wife and wife, husband, whatever it is, like in partnerships, there's always going to be some disagreement. But there will be those couples that surprise you. You're like, wait, it didn't seem like there were any issues. And not that we know everything, but what the perception, what they present to the world is very different than what might be going on behind closed doors. And it's in the sense also like, well, hearing them out and being like, if you have exhausted all the resources and done everything you can to save this marriage, to make this marriage work, then I support you. You know what's best for you. And sometimes it's hard. It doesn't mean you're out of love. It just means that you're out of solutions or out of a way to make it work in a sense. So yeah, it's hearing them out.
Absolutely. So more on hearing people out, number one. Also accepting when it's time and celebrating them for making the decision, because it was likely a really hard decision to come to. Beto mentioned, being the oldest tradition. I think sometimes divorce can be painted with a negative brushstroke because it's a bad thing, quote unquote bad thing in certain sectors like traditional families, Latino families, religions. And I'm not here to tell anybody what's good or bad or right or wrong for them. However, I don't personally think divorce is bad. I am a product of a family that divorce was a good thing. While my parents didn't formally divorce, like them separated was an exceptional thing for my family. And my tip of the day is going to be to embrace divorce as a solution that may very well be the best possible thing that could happen, and not from a place of sadness like we opened the show, because I think that sometimes people have a hard time coming to divorce because of a stigma that's there, whether we like it or not. And when we can be less judgmental about, is it good, is it bad, I think that's better for everybody. So my tip is going to be to try not to judge divorce as a good or bad thing. It's just something that needs to happen, and it runs its course in some relationships. When my parents were separating, I would think I was like 7 or 8 years old. And I think my mom came to the conclusion, because enough of her kids had said to her, you don't have to be with him. You don't have to be with him. Like, you can be apart. You can leave him. You should leave him. My sister was 18 when I was born. So if I was 7, she was in her mid-20s telling my mom, you should leave him. And I was a 7-year-old telling my mom, you should leave him. So she's having all these kids and realizing, I guess divorce and separation is the answer for my family. My kids are not going to be better off with this dad that is not working out. So that was my personal kind of relationship with a family separating and it being a good thing. I didn't know when I was young that it was a good thing. As I grew up, I understood what a good thing it was that my dad wasn't in my life like a traditional parent, that my mom was in charge, that I didn't get to see the trauma my older siblings saw, that I got a much better life, a much calmer life. I got so many wonderful things because I'm a product of quote unquote divorce, but it was really just separation. And I'm really happy for it. Now I'm on the other side of it, and I've been married almost 20 years, and I married a man who was like, divorce is not an option. His parents have been together forever and they still love each other clearly. So he always came from a place of divorce is not ever on the table. And he's even come around where he's read books and grown up and been in a relationship as long as he has, that he doesn't think divorce is a bad thing. And neither do I, but by some blessing, we've managed to stay together and love each other and be happy with one another, regardless of the struggles that come with staying together for a really long time with a person that's new in your life. For my family and friends, I will say my advice is to be very careful about those initial moments of like, I hate this person, or it's not going well, or I finally decided, because then everything might get cleaned up. I have someone in my life that is close to our family that struggled a lot in silence because they didn't want to badmouth their partner. And they know that then they make up and maybe we're going to have feelings about their partner and it becomes super messy. That's hard. I think women suffer in silence when they're wanting to get separated or divorced. They keep it from their parent. They keep it from their siblings. I want to say right now, we have to give people grace. And if I feel, my advice to people that are being hit with this new information with their friends and family that are separated or getting divorced, to be supportive and not judgmental and say, hey, I'm not going to judge you wherever you go. Say you get back together, say it ends. I'm not going to judge you. You're doing the best you can. Like having a lot of empathy and saying the words out loud, that there's no judgment on my part. I'm just here to support you. You can be as candid or as open about your partner. You can rag on them if you want to. I'm not going to hold it against them. It's this weird thing to be said, right? Relationships, one day se quieren, otro día no. I mean, I know some kids that like their parents have been divorced twice. Like, who are we to judge? I have great friends actually that two really good friends that got divorced, had one child. They end up getting back together. They end up having another child. One of them is now re-divorced. The other one, happy as a clam, together again. So be supportive, be non-judgmental. And I'm going to say, don't go too hard for any one side, because when they get back together, that might be weird. And forgive people. It's not your relationship, but forgive them. Now, easier said than done. Like, what if you are the sibling to someone who's leaving someone that is abusive, or there's domestic violence or substance abuse? Okay, there maybe you need to sway and be a little more opinionated, and you have a moral compass, and you have a responsibility to someone who's maybe in something extremely bad for them and toxic. For the most part, nothing is that extreme. So careful of judging and labeling the good or bad, taking sides. Careful of coming across as though you have completely cut somebody out of your life and you never want to see them again, because boy, will you have egg on your face when they get back together and you talked a lot of mess. Any other thoughts about anything one of us shared? Anything come up for you as examples of how to handle it? What did you guys think of the stories that we shared?
What came to mind when you were sharing, Irene, is that when I experienced the whole, like, the different perspective in divorce, I was already in my mid-20s when I met my college roommate's husband and his family. Like, I was like, who are these people? So both parents were like, they were divorced, but were friends. And then they had each already individually started families. And one of, and then they're like, okay. And then one of them was like already on his third wife. The other one was like, I'm fine, like, living life on my own now. And the other couple that I met, like, through them as well, and they're all Brazilian. So they're all Brazilian. So I'm like, this is like the Brazilian way of life. And it was like they were still amicable. They were still like okay with, like co-parenting their children and starting lives over again. The second family was like, the other partner was like, I just tripped out, because when I spoke to this person's mom, the one that had gone through the multiple divorces as well, she was like, it's going to be very different every time that you meet someone. And even though we want to think in our mind that marriage is forever, you don't want to go into a marriage thinking, well, marriage is always an option. But I remember talking to Summer, and Summer was like, after meeting all of these older couples and that have been through maybe 1, 2, 3 divorces, she's like, you don't come to a marriage. She's like, I started thinking, yeah, you don't want to come in thinking divorce is an option if it doesn't work out. More of like, if it happens, things are going to still be okay for me, right? So not in a sense thinking that divorce is final, ya te quedaste, there's no options or for you. It's more of like you just pivot in that aspect of your life. And meeting these people firsthand and hearing their stories, for me as older people, you could say, like I was in my 20s, going in my 30s. They were in their 50s, 60s, and hearing their stories about like, hey, sometimes you change, and it's important to find a partner that is going to be supportive of who you are now, not who you were or what you aspire to be, but who you are at this moment. So I never thought about it as divorce being okay, not cool, but okay, until my middle to late 20s, early 30s, after I had gone through I didn't go through with a marriage. I canceled the engagement, and thinking like, wow, I it was a setback, not a failure, right? In that sense in the love department. But meeting these people really helped me say like, oh, that's okay, because you can still get married, and if things don't work out, there is an out. It doesn't mean it should be your out without having to fix things or figure things out. And how you mentioned, Erin, domestic violence or any kind of abuse. Outside of that, like, there is a way out. And it's okay to take that option. That's why it's there. Not because it's, it wouldn't be an option if it was bad. So yeah, it's crazy.
I just wanted to share one thing. So I think if it's going to happen, I think what Vero described, that's the best case scenario, when there's like blended families and both ex-spouses, like they get along, everyone can come together to like the family parties, the gatherings, the weddings, when like the kids get married. I think that's the best case scenario, like what we see on TV sometimes. I've actually experienced this myself with my cousin's in-laws. Yeah, my cousin's in-laws, and she listens. She's a fan of our podcast, so she's gonna know who I'm talking about. But her in-laws, they, su suegro, la suegra, they've been separated for a really long time, but they each have their own spouses, and don't know if they've had children with that other spouse, but when they come together for like their grandchild's birthday parties, todos vienen, like everyone, ex-spouses, everyone gets along, everyone, talks to each other. I think that's cool to see. But of course, with my semi-traditional Mexican family, like they think it's so weird. Mira cómo se habla la ex-esposa con la esposa de ahora. Like, how it's so weird. So I think culturally we come from, the traditional, like stay married or don't divorce. Or if you do divorce, like why are you going to talk to your ex-husband's now wife? But why not? If there, like you guys mentioned, if there wasn't anything violent or crazy about the separation, it was just like that was it, that was the end of the road for us, and we moved on, and now we love someone else. Like, well, why not just be a happy family?
Yeah, and then there's that like corny saying that like, what's better for your kids, one household with both of their parents where they're unhappy and don't get along, or two households with extra parents where everybody's happy and gets along? Like, ultimately, I think we would vote for the two households. Our story can come to an end, but if I'm happy with a new partner and Diego's happy with a new partner and my kids see two happy households and go to two happy households, that would be really great. Now, I think it's still harder said than done. I'm in a situation where that hasn't happened in our lives. I know that my kids, when they started to understand divorce, they had a lot of questions for Diego and I. They would never like to see us fight or raise our voices when they started to understand like friends having two sets of homes and parents not living together. It's interesting because kids are at a certain age. I think it's really, really hard for them to understand their parents not working out. And I feel for my friends and my family that is going through something like this and their kids are teenagers, because I can imagine it's going to take a toll on the kids. So I understand that different friends and families going through this have kids, don't have kids, have older kids, have younger kids, whatever the dynamic. I think as long as we're truly there for them and not stigmatizing or judging and allowing them to come to their own conclusions with your support, I think is really good. Like, you can change your mind, friend, you can stay, you can go. Do you want therapy? Do you need help with that? I love how Ceci said offering to support them. I have a close contact of mine that when this person finally shared that they are really at their wits' end and they're not together right now and they're going through it, Diego and I rushed to their side that very day, because to share and to open up was huge. And so it didn't matter if we were going over to see them at 9-10 o'clock at night, but we wanted to share that, like, we're here. We don't know what to say. We don't know what to do. We want you to know that we're physically here for you. This particular person that's close to us, they have very, very young children. And so the kids aren't so impacted, but I offered to like support with watching the kids as needed to be a support. And then I think if it's not going to work out for this family, I kind of love that the kids are younger, that the kids won't know any better, because I think sometimes those are the coolest blended families. Like, you don't know that your parents once were together and loved each other, and suddenly you grow up and you're like, I got two mommies, I got two daddies. How many grandparents is that, guys? Like a whole lot of grandparents. There's a whole lot of parents. So you just end up having a big family. So also finding those bright silver linings in situations when people are going for it. Sometimes I get blamed for that because I'm always trying to find the good. It's like, girl, just be bitch with me. And I'm like, no. Like, this is good. They're technically little. That might be good. Thanksgiving gets bigger. I'll say like the stupid thing, right? But that's a good way to look at it too. Like, what is the silver lining in divorce? I like to share the story about how in my life, divorce was a good thing with my parents. I'm glad they're not together. And I like to share the other part of it, that it's like, marriage is freaking hard. Marriage is hard. And we can do hard things, but sometimes we don't have to. Sometimes we can change our minds, and sometimes we can say, listen, this is so hard that it's not doable. I cannot do it. And that's okay. You're not a quitter. You're not any less Catholic. You're not any less Mexicana, Guatemalteca, Hondureña, wherever you come from, Italian, wherever you're from. You are you. And just like, I don't run marathons, but you do, que bueno. Tú te vas a divorciar, yo me quedé casada, que bueno. You're gay, you're straight. Choose your life and do what you want. Being gay in this society is hard. That's hard. That is hard. And we don't get to choose. People are so terrible. Dealing with racism in this society is hard. And you cannot take away prejudice that you will feel. Divorce is divorce. This is another one of a hard thing that you'll go through. And we choose our hard, and we'll go through it, and we'll embrace it, and we'll love the people going through it as best we can. And just being supportive, I think, is like critically important. And I think Jesus still loves you. Your mom will forgive you. My mom, quick story. My mom lost her mind when my sister went and married someone who's divorced. Lost her mind. She lost her mind. I love her. I'm glad she can't listen to this podcast. but lost her mind because my sister was going to marry a divorced man. This was, gosh, they've been married like 30 plus years. And my sister's in her mid-20s, and my mom is just like, oh my God, like, echada a perder. She can't get married at church. This man was married. My brother-in-law is an angel. He's an amazing man. He's a good man. He had a kid as a teenager. He married that woman. It didn't work out. He had a young son. He deserved to live his whole life married to my sister and to have 3 wonderful daughters with my sister and to build a beautiful life. They've built such a beautiful life. But when my mom met him, he had the D for divorce branded on him, and how dare she marry a divorced man. And I was so young and I didn't get it. And I was like, why do they hate him? Like, he's pretty cool. He takes me to SeaWorld. I didn't get it. But she was wrong. Like, religion told her to hate it. And now my mom comes around, loves him, loves my husband. She's come around. She was really wrong. And if my sister would have listened to her and not gone with her heart, my sister would have lost a whole life ahead of her. Maybe her life would have been different, but she's got a beautiful life that she built with a man that was divorced, that was married for like 25 seconds. So that's the moral of the story, y'all. We don't know how it's going to end up. And so divorce is not necessarily a bad thing. And the best we can do for people is what we said today. Try to be non-judgmental, offer to help, reimagine how we define divorce. It doesn't have to be good or bad. Laugh about it. Find the examples and the silver lining where it was a good thing. And when you don't know what to do, ask the professionals. Ask somebody else. How can I be there for them? Ask your therapist friends. Ask your counselor friends. Ask your divorce friends. They're probably the best people to ask. So we're going to wrap with that, and we're going to say that if you're listening to this show and you have great advice because you've been divorced, share it with us. Email us, DM us. That'd be really helpful so that we can reintroduce this to the community on our social media. Maybe we'll put it in a future blog. But we'd love to give advice from the divorce side because we obviously don't have that opinion since none of us have been divorced yet. So if you want to share your insights, please do. You can DM us at Level Up Latina is our handle. You can email us, admin@leveluplatina.com is our email. Or you can just slide into the DMs and get into this conversation with us. We'd love to keep the conversation going. Again, this is just meant to be short and sweet, something to think about, and a topic to start the summer series. And we are going to leave it at that. Let's quiero mucho, and we will be back for the next episode. So thank you for being here today.
See you in the next one. Thank you.